And now let's welcome Marléne Rose Shaw, who I met at the Costa Women Make It Happen event with a very interesting subject that she was talking about. Marléne, welcome to Marbella Now.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's brilliant to be here. I'm very excited.
Well, I'm very excited to have you. And I was going through your website looking at what you do, and it's commendable. I think we all need to have a Marléne Rose Shaw in our lives. In fact, your page, well, how would you say what you are? Because it's not like a coach or a life coach, but it's a positivity coach.
I'm a therapist. I'm a therapist. And I do coaching as well. So yeah, fundamentally I'm a therapist. But as time's gone on, my career has evolved. I've sort of evolved into a more wider audience. So I have an online community now as well as my one-to-one clients.
So what would you qualify therapy different to coaching? What would be that's difference?
I think therapists we're more psychologically trained. There was a time when people said therapists looked at your past and coaches looked at your future, but it's not so much like that these days. We all look at all of it because it all matters. You know, the past gives us sort of a clue to the blueprint of somebody's life, the beliefs and the thoughts and the way that they live by. But actually, I'm also very interested in, okay, well, we know why you do what you do, but what are we going to do about that? How are we going to make changes?
Well, I think it's funny because I don't necessarily think we are all aware of where we perhaps are following a pre-programmed pattern of things we learned as a child or because we're all busy in life. And I wish more people would actually stop to just think about how they're feeling, what's going on, because when you do start to do it, which I did, you know, it makes a difference when you can actually catch yourself. And you had a quiz, which I thought was lovely, on your website to see if you were a people pleaser. Yes. I think this says a lot of people fall into this people pleasing thing, and my results were shocking. I had 70s, 80s, and a 90 up there, which apparently the higher it was, the worse it was. I think I'm a people pleaser.
Everybody's a people pleaser. Every single one of us is a people pleaser. You know, there's different reasons for that. There's a sort of a primal thing about wanting to stay in the tribe and not be cast out of the tribe, so we'll survive. And then there's the childhood thing from, you know, when as small children, we want to please our parents. We don't want to get told off, so we don't say no. We're always a good little girl or a good little boy. So that's part of, you know, why people please. And then, of course, we grow up, we go into relationships, and we want to... sorry, I'm just getting very distracted there. Take a breath. Okay. So, you know, in our adult relationships, we just play out those same patterns.
It is the case, but as we are all people pleasers, or most of us are people pleasers, you've got a few narcissists thrown in there who really don't care about pleasing anyone. But if we take it to the majority of us want to be liked and we want people to help people when we can, some people do take it too far. So when it infringes on their own personal space, time, energy, mental health, well-being, because if you're giving everything to others, what is left for oneself? How does one find the happy medium, the balance?
The balance, it's just such a good thing that you said that, because that's what I'm all about. I'm on a mission, actually, to help people to understand the difference between coming from fear and coming from love. Because when we people pleasing is something that people do often from a place of fear. They're worried about what will people think of me if I say this, if I say no, if I set a boundary, you know, what will people do if I say I want to live my life this way? How will people judge me? But actually, my second book is called How Kind People Get Tough. And it's all about...
A second book? I like this. Carry on.
It's called How Kind People Get Tough. And it's all about helping people to find that balance and really understand what being assertive really means. Because being assertive is not about power and control and getting back at somebody. It's about looking at the bigger picture. And I talk quite a lot about the difference between misguided kindness and conscious kindness. When we have misguided kindness, we people please. We say, oh yes, I'll smooth it all over. I don't want to rock the boat. Or I'll just say yes to you because it's easier. When we have conscious kindness, what we do is we look at the much bigger picture of the fact that we're all here to learn and grow and evolve. And actually sometimes that means we have to sort of have somebody say no to us or not have everything given to us. And so when we think of that, it makes it much easier for us to say to somebody, to set a boundary. And we can do that in such a loving, kind way. It makes our relationships amazing when we do that.
I think also if we're not, as they say, if you don't value yourself, no one else will. So if you're not valuing your own time and what you're offering and bringing to the table, then it's going to be taken for granted probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we tend to operate from the subconscious a lot. So I always say, teach people how to treat you. What we tend to do is we might say something, but actually we'll behave in a different way, and people read our behaviour. So if we, for example, if somebody's always late and we say, oh, it's all right, we're telling that person that that's okay. And it's not that we want to be negative with them, but actually we're giving them a message all the time. And so when they carry on being late, and then we get into this thing called resentment, which shows, then people are thinking, well, what's the problem? It's because we haven't spoken up and we haven't said, we haven't communicated.
Yeah, and I think that also it's communicating before, hopefully, you get to that point of resentment that when you do communicate it, it comes out perhaps with more emphasis than was intended, because you're building things up, which tends to be the case.
I'm all about, I have this phrase I say to clients, get out ahead of it. Think about the boundaries. We don't wake up in the morning and think, oh, I wonder what boundaries I should have today. We wait until something goes wrong that we need to fix, and then we think about our boundaries. Yeah. But actually, if we can get into the habit of noticing ourselves, noticing other people, how we interact, the things that bug us, the things that don't bug us, and actually think, well, obviously, this is my value. So, for example, one of my values is timekeeping. So very different for you living in Andalusia then,
because we are, as you get further south in Spain, mañana becomes like not tomorrow, it becomes not today, and then it means, well, not today, but I have no idea when. There is no timekeeping down here, so I imagine that could be frustrating for you.
Have to have a bit of leeway with that.
Exactly, because that's a cultural difference.
It is, and that's fine, that's all cool. But when we understand our values, when we know ourselves really well, then we're much more able to get out ahead of it, to communicate to people the things that that bug us and the things that and let other things go. So it's just about really knowing yourself very well and communicating.
Yeah. On that note, though, I do feel sometimes, obviously, there's different things, and devil advocate. But sometimes because we feel something is upsetting us, it doesn't necessarily mean that is the be-all and end-all.
No.
Because maybe we're taking it out of proportion, and maybe you just need to move away from that person, or that is just how they are, and I'm upset about it, but what a silly thing to be upset about in the big scale of things, that someone's not on top, and I like it that way. I do think there's a little bit of both ways of
there is.
Of how we're reacting to things, and if we're reacting in the right measure.
Yes, absolutely. And it comes back to that knowing yourself really well and having great conversations. You can say to a friend, this thing is sort of, if I seem a bit moody, it's just I've got this thing about this thing, and you can have a bit of a laugh about it. And, it just enhances your relationships to be able to really be your true self.
I do that myself a lot more. Yeah. Thankfully, I talk to a lot of coaches and nice people like yourself, but recently there was someone who was always late, and it did get to the point where it was like, so you're really mad at me? I said, I'm not mad at you, I'm just frustrated because the rest of my day is just now shot. So I'm not mad at you because I do actually understand and empathise, and I do get it. It's just that now everything else I had planned, so it's that moment of frustration, but we spoke about it, whereas perhaps previously in my life I would have just kept it. But it was better to say it, as you say. And your first book?
My first book is called Out of Fear into Love, and it's all about limiting beliefs, and it covers 4 main limiting beliefs that we all tend to have, and how to let go of those limiting beliefs There's different things we can do, and that book describes EFT tapping. I don't know if you've ever
I have heard of it.
EFT. And then how we can move into a space of self-love. So
the EFT, for those who haven't heard, it may sound quite silly to sit there tapping oneself, and I very rarely do it when the videos come up on Instagram or TikTok, and I look at the tapping. What is the benefit of tapping oneself?
EFT is, if you think about acupuncture, it's a little bit like acupuncture, but without the needles.
Okay, see, just even that comment's made a difference.
Right. And so EFT works on two levels. On one level, it finds the tension in your body. So, you know, if you're angry, you might feel it in your stomach, or if you're anxious, you might feel it in your chest. So it releases that. But the other thing it does, which is the bit I love, is it gets to the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that goes fight, flight, freeze, the panicky bit. And it just soothes the amygdala right down, so that you're able to sort of look at something and think, I can see it from a more practical, from an easier perspective now, a perspective that makes a lot more sense because you've let go of all that emotion.
So that's something as well as, like, say, breathing. If you realise you're getting a bit stressed, overwhelmed, stop, breathe. This would be another tactic, would be to start tapping certain points just to distract the brain and go into a different vibe. It just
switches off. It's like a circuit board. It just switches off the panic response. Yeah. Okay,
carry on. We've got one. What were the other three?
So there's lots of different ways of reducing and limiting beliefs. One really fun way is if you say, I don't know, something like, I'm scared of dogs, for example. You might say, I'm scared of dogs because... You say, well, I'm scared of dogs because once upon a time a dog bit me, okay, and that made me cry. I'm scared of dogs because that made me cry, because. And so you keep going because, and writing that down. You get to the real root of the experience, and then you're able to look at it and see that actually it's probably not the big experience that you have. The story you've told yourself.
Because we do tell ourselves lots of stories, don't we? That is the fear. What did they say? False expectations appearing real. Fear.
Yes.
Because mostly that fearful thing doesn't happen.
No.
And so you're living in this state of fight or flight kind of thing. And then nothing's going to happen. We just somehow, why do we do that?
Yeah, it gets trapped in the system. You know, when we have a trauma, it gets trapped in the body. And people, you know, sometimes they go to a chiropractor or a physio, and maybe they're sort of in their 40s or 50s, and it could be from some trauma they had when they were 5, and it's been stuck in their body the whole time. And, you know, they can sort of move that energy and help them to release.
These people pleasers keeping everything to themselves.
Yeah. So I always say, imagine if all the world leaders weren't coming from a place of fear, if they weren't, you know, because it's the inner child that feels that fear within us. And when we can soothe that inner child and just, you know, be more loving to ourselves and come from an adult place, which comes back to this people pleasing and communicating, we can come back from an adult place rather than the anxious child who's cross and worried and stressed. And, you know, I always say if all the world leaders could actually soothe their inner child and actually communicate with each other from their adult, can you imagine what the world would be like?
Yes, it could be lovely. Even I heard something the other day with a discussion film about if women were the leaders, we wouldn't have the wars because we wouldn't be doing all this fighting. We'd find an easier way of working it out that it didn't involve all this. Before, and normally if we make a mistake or do something, we cut it out of the show. But I was so impressed before with Josefina talking in the background. There was a lot of noise going on. I'm kind of used to this, and I was finding it distracting. And you said, "Oh my God, this is distracting." You centered yourself like that. And that's why I think I'm leaving it in.
Okay.
Because obviously you've got techniques in there that you found that you completely, this is distracting, I've completely gone, and you used a technique just to bring yourself right. Okay, I've got this, and carry on again.
That's because I reminded myself that I'm not here for me. I'm not here for me. I'm here to help people. So it's more important for me to talk about the message that I have. And I just love what I do, Nicole.
Oh, I could tell.
I love it so much that it doesn't matter if there's a bit of noise there. Just forget it.
Normally I would edit those things out, but it was actually, as we're chatting, it was like, that's a great example of who you are and what you're trying to share with us.
Yeah.
Things happen, but we don't have to react. If we get distracted, we can just recenter, refocus, grab it again. How can we get to see you? What would be the format if someone's like, I'd like to chat with Marléne? Because I think that's how it starts. That looks like someone I can chat with.
Yeah.
Because that's really how I see that a session probably would do with going. Chatting, going through, seeing what it is maybe that's holding them back. Fear, people pleasing, not fulfilling one's potential, dreams.
That's what I help people with. And actually, they might come to me with a different issue, like a relationship problem or anxiety or something, but it generally comes back to that. So, I offer a free 30-minute consultation because I like to get to know people. I want them to get to know me and make sure that we're a good fit. And if we're not, I can refer them somewhere else to one of my colleagues. But people can just come to my website. It's Marléne Rose Shaw.
I love the name, Marléne Rose Shaw.
Marléne Rose Shaw. I started that when I started writing books. I put my middle name in for as
it's
my
lovely,
author
and it's a lovely name, and it lends itself to what you do. It's a very soft name, very inviting. You have a lovely vibe about you. It's very relaxing sitting here. I'm not going to finish the show. I just want to sit here and chat with you. But that is what it's all about. So I can share that in my personal experience, just chatting with Marléne these few minutes, I feel very relaxed, you want a very trusting aura about you. As if there are things you would like to talk about, discuss, just see maybe whether you could benefit from getting some help with Marléne. If you got a half an hour free consultation, I would make the most of that offer if I were you. Marléne, thank you so much. I hope we will catch up again. Yeah. I really enjoyed listening to you.
Thank you, Nicole.
My absolute pleasure.
It's been great to be here.
Yeah. Long live Costa women. Great women doing great things all together. For men as well. So it's like, we're not leaving you out. Thank you, Marléne.
Hey, hey.